my husband and mother-in-law suddenly developed mind-reading powers, and they could hear his first love's inner thoughts. My husband's first love came back from abroad. He became her perfect boyfriend, doing everything for her. Meanwhile, I was his free housekeeper during the day and slept alone at night. His first love even convinced my mother-in-law to help her become the new daughter-in-law. After being reborn, I took the initiative to divorce. But suddenly his first love's inner thoughts started playing out loud, like a speaker. She told my husband she'd been waiting for him all along, but her thoughts revealed the air abroad was so fresh. If I didn't know you're worth hundreds of millions now, I wouldn't bother coming back for you. She complimented my mother-in-law on looking young, but thought this old hag smells terrible. So disgusting. David Wilson's company kept growing bigger, and he got busier. He barely managed to find time for our simple wedding. We skipped engagement photos and honeymoon because he was too busy. After the exhausting ceremony, our driver took us to the villa. Getting out of the car, I saw Rebecca standing at our front door. She was my aunt's daughter, my younger cousin and David's first love. 3 years ago, David confessed to her and gave her a 6-figure necklace. But Rebecca disappeared without a trace. Keeping the necklace for 3 years, I helped David heal from heartbreak and grow his company into a success. Now Rebecca was back. I watched David's body visibly tense when he saw her. Rebecca wore a white dress with long black hair, looking pure and beautiful. She handed me a gift box, smiling sweetly. "Cousin Emma, congratulations on your wedding. When I heard you got married, I bought the fastest flight back. I'm so sorry I missed your ceremony." She turned to David with an even sweeter smile. "David, you look so handsome today. I almost didn't recognize you." Her voice had that flirtatious tone that made men weak. I smiled calmly and accepted the gift. "Thank you." Rebecca pretended she didn't want to disturb our wedding night, then asked, "It's so late. I don't want to bother Mom or Aunt and Uncle. Emma, are there any hotels nearby? I'll find somewhere to stay tonight and look for an apartment tomorrow." I offered to let her stay at our villa. Rebecca bit her carefully painted red lips. "Are you sure tonight is your wedding night?" I laughed inside. She clearly planned to stay here all along but was still pretending. But I was ready for this. I had prepared to let her move in. So I smiled and said, "It's fine. We have plenty of guest rooms." Rebecca stared directly at David with perfectly made-up eyes, speaking in that carefully innocent tone. "David, is it okay with you?" David kept a straight face and said coldly, "Whatever." He walked past Rebecca and went inside after my shower. David was still in the other bathroom. I heard his phone ring, then quickly cut off. He had brought his phone into the bathroom while showering. I didn't care and went to sleep peacefully. If this were my past life, seeing him carry his phone everywhere because Rebecca was back would make me jealous, hurt, and heartbroken. But in this life, I wouldn't be that foolish, love-sick woman anymore. I was just waiting for him to get Rebecca pregnant, like in my past life. Then come ask for a peaceful divorce with half the assets. When that happened, I'd sign immediately and take the money. I would never again beg him, through tears, to stay with me, like I did before. Back then, my love turned to hate and revenge. Even knowing he was completely devoted to Rebecca's sweet words, I refused to sign the divorce papers. I dragged it out until he ruthlessly transferred all assets away and repeatedly beat me. Finally, I was declared mentally unstable and forcibly sent to a psychiatric hospital, where I died in agony. At the moment of death, I thought if I got another chance, I'd never waste my life on him again. So in this reborn life, I'd keep that promise. I woke up thirsty in the middle of the night. The bed was empty, just like my past life. David wasn't in our bed on our wedding night. I got up to get water. From the kitchen, the guest room closest to our master bedroom had its lights on. As I passed by, I noticed they forgot to close the door properly. There was a big gap. I could clearly see Rebecca actively hugging David's waist, pressing herself into his arms. She kissed him while crying. "David, I missed you so much. I thought about you every day." "Don't touch me," David said with a stern face. Pushing her away, Rebecca tighter and cried harder. 3 years ago, I left without saying goodbye because I was sick. Really, really sick. I didn't want to burden you. I thought I was going to die. David, I didn't want to leave you, but I had no choice. Your career was just starting, and my treatment would cost so much money. I chose to leave because I didn't want to drag you down. At these words, David stopped pushing her away. I couldn't help but sneer. Men are so blind. A few fake tears, and their hearts soften. But this was perfect. The sooner this woman stole his heart, the sooner I could divorce and take the money. Rebecca lifted her tear-stained face and looked at him pitifully. "David, please hold me. Please forgive me." David didn't move, but he was clearly less resistant to her advances. His face showed internal struggle, and his hands even seemed ready to embrace her. Just then, a smug voice cut through the silence. "This is so boring. I could have him wrapped around my finger in minutes." Well, with all my experience sleeping with countless men over the years, seducing this inexperienced David is child's play. It was Rebecca's voice. I thought I was hearing things. Even if Rebecca was stupid, she wouldn't say something like that in front of David. But Rebecca's voice came again, crystal clear. "I just made up some story about being seriously ill, and he believed it. Pathetic. David. Oh, David. If you weren't worth hundreds of millions now, I wouldn't even look at a country bumpkin like you, let alone come back for you. Abroad was so much better. Fresh air, and all the guys were way stronger. And better looking than the men here. I really miss it. But thinking about it, David needs to be this stupid. That way he'll listen to me. Even though he just married that airhead Emma. He'll listen to me, and dump her right away, making me Mrs. Wilson. Then I'll have him completely under control. And all those hundreds of millions will be mine." Ah, ah. This time I was certain I wasn't hearing things. Those words were definitely in Rebecca's voice. But her mouth was literally kissing David's chin. She hadn't opened her mouth to speak a single word. I stood there stunned. David, who had seemed tempted by her seduction moments before, suddenly pushed Rebecca away a few steps. His eyes had lost all the desire from their intimate moment, filled instead with disbelief and anger. "What did you say? Repeat everything you just said." Rebecca looked at David with tears in her eyes, appearing frightened. "David, you won't even hug me anymore. Do you hate me that much?" "Shut up." David's face darkened. "I'm asking you again. What was the real reason you left without saying goodbye?" "You don't believe." Rebecca turned to grab her purse, dumping everything onto the floor. She pulled out medical records and several pill bottles, shoving them into David's arms. Her acting was impressive. Her voice trembled dramatically. "David, look. These prove I was sick. The domestic hospital diagnosed me with cancer. I went abroad for a second opinion and found out it was a benign tumor, but still very serious. I spent 3 whole years treating it abroad. I thought the disease just to see you again. I fought desperately for treatment until now, when it's finally under control. But I still have to take medication. And, you married my cousin. Do you know how devastated I was when I heard? My heart was breaking, but I still had to, and I was fine. And bless you. Wish you happiness because you're still the man I love most." She got more emotional as she spoke, her shoulders shaking with sobs. David looked down at the anti-tumor medications, gripping the bottles tighter and tighter. When he looked at Rebecca again, his face showed compassion and involuntary tenderness. But then Rebecca's inner voice returned. The silence in the hallway was heavy, broken only by Rebecca's soft, practiced sobs. David was staring at the pill bottles in his hands, his knuckles turning white. Then the voice, that voice, echoed again, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere. It was Rebecca's voice, but stripped of its sugary coating. It was sharp, street-smart, and utterly disdainful. "God, my eyes are stinging. I rubbed too much onion juice on my handkerchief before coming in. Look at him, staring at those bottles like they're holy relics. If he knew those were just high-end vitamins I swapped into empty prescription bottles I bought off eBay, he'd strangle me. He's so gullible. It's almost too easy." I watched from the shadows of the kitchen doorway. The glass of water in my hand was the only thing keeping me grounded. I wasn't hallucinating. And by the look on David's face, the way his jaw went slack and his eyes darted from the bottles to Rebecca's weeping face, he heard it too. "David." Rebecca sniffled, reaching out to touch his arm. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I know I look haggard from the chemotherapy." "Haggard?" "I spent 4 hours on this sickly makeup look. Contouring my cheekbones to look gaunt takes serious skill. And this dress cost $2,000. He better appreciate the investment." David flinched as her hand touched him. He took a step back, the pill bottles rattling in his grip. "Chemotherapy," David repeated, his voice sounding hollow. "You said these are for the tumor?" "Yes," Rebecca choked out, wiping a tear. "They're strong. The side effects are terrible. Side effects include glowing skin and stronger nails because it's literally folic acid and collagen. Hurry up and hug me, you idiot. I need access to the master bedroom. This guest bed is too hard." David's face went through a terrifying transformation. The tenderness and guilt that had been there moments ago evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp confusion. He looked at the woman he had mourned for 3 years, the woman he had built an empire to impress, and then he looked at the bottles. "I think," David said, his voice unusually flat, "we should get you to a doctor immediately. If you're still on medication, my private physician needs to see this." Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. "Oh no, David. I don't want to trouble anyone tonight. I just want to rest.
Shit.
A doctor? No way. They'll see my blood work is cleaner than a whistle. I need to stall. Play the victim card. Harder. David, she whispered, swaying on her feet as if fainting. I'm just so tired. Can we talk about doctors tomorrow? Please. She collapsed forward, expecting him to catch her. In the past, David would have lunged to save her. Tonight, he stood still. Rebecca hit the carpet with a dull thud.
Ouch.
What the hell? Why didn't he catch me? My knee. That's going to bruise. Emma, David called out, his voice shaking. He didn't look at Rebecca on the floor. He looked directly at me in the doorway. I stepped into the light, sipping my water calmly. Yes. Call the driver, David said, his eyes dark. And call Dr. Harrison. Tell him to meet us at the private hospital.
Now.
Rebecca scrambled up from the floor, forgetting her act for a split second. Hospital?
No.
I just need sleep. If you're sick, David said, his tone icy, we treat it. If you're lying. He trailed off, the threat hanging in the air. Why is he acting so weird? Did he find out about the abortion I had in Paris? No, he couldn't have. Calm down, Rebecca. You can fake a panic attack at the hospital. I smiled, seeing the color drain from David's face at the mention of abortion in Paris. I'll go get the car keys, I said pleasantly. The hospital visit was a disaster for Rebecca, but she managed to fake a severe panic attack before they could draw blood, screaming that she had PTSD from needles. David, looking exhausted and grim, had brought her back to the villa, but he hadn't slept in the same room as her. He hadn't slept at all. The next morning, my mother-in-law, Susan, arrived. Susan had never liked me. She thought I was too quiet, too plain, and not helpful enough for her son's career. She had always adored Rebecca. Oh, my poor Rebecca, Susan wailed, rushing into the living room where Rebecca was lying on the sofa, wrapped in a cashmere blanket. I came as soon as I heard you were back. Look at you, you poor thin thing. Rebecca sat up weakly, smiling like an angel. Auntie Susan, I missed you so much. You haven't aged a day. You look like David's sister. Susan beamed, patting her hair. Oh, stop it, you sweet girl. God, that perfume. It smells like a funeral home mixed with cheap potpourri. And look at those wrinkles. She looks like a melted candle. Old hag, just die already so I don't have to deal with you when I move in. The room went deadly silent. I was pouring tea nearby. I saw Susan freeze. Her hand, which had been stroking Rebecca's hair, stopped midair. David was coming down the stairs, buttoning his shirt. He froze on the landing. Auntie, Rebecca asked, tilting her head innocently. Is something wrong? Why did the old bag stop petting me? Ugh, her skin is so rough. I bet she expects me to take care of her when she gets older. As if. I'll dump her in the cheapest nursing home I can find the second I get the ring. Susan slowly pulled her hand back as if she had touched a hot stove. She blinked rapidly, looking around the room, confused. She looked at me, then at David. Did you hear that? Susan whispered. Hear what, Auntie? Rebecca asked, sweet as syrup. Mom, David said, walking down the stairs, his footsteps heavy. Come here. Susan stood up, her face pale. She looked at Rebecca, who was still smiling that perfect, innocent smile. Rebecca, Susan said, her voice trembling. I brought you some chicken soup. Thank you. I love your soup, Rebecca chirped. Greasy slop. I'll pour it down the toilet the second she leaves. I only eat organic broth from Michelin restaurants, not this peasant's will. Susan gasped. She took a step back, clutching her chest. The betrayal in her eyes was heartbreaking, even to me. She had defended Rebecca for years, comparing me to her constantly. Get out, Susan whispered. Rebecca looked confused. Auntie. I said get out. Susan screamed, snatching her purse. She turned to David, eyes wide with horror. David, she's a monster. I know, Mom, David said softly. He guided his mother to the kitchen. I know. I watched Rebecca sitting on the sofa, looking genuinely baffled. She didn't know. She had no idea her thoughts were being broadcasted on a frequency only we could hear. What is wrong with this family? Did the old hag go senile? Whatever. As long as David is still on the hook. Speaking of, I need to get into his study. I promised Mark back in London I'd get him the specs for David's new tech chip. That payout will cover my gambling debts. I looked up at the stairs. David was standing there, watching her. He had heard every word. The look on his face wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. For the next week, the villa became a theater of the absurd. Rebecca played the role of the recovering saint, while her mind broadcasted a 24/7 stream of vitriol, greed, and past sins. I continued my role as the housekeeper, but I had already contacted a lawyer. I didn't care if David knew the truth now. I wanted my freedom. But David kept stalling the divorce talks, claiming he was handling things. On Wednesday, Rebecca insisted on visiting David's company. I just want to see where you work, David, she pleaded over breakfast. I want to support you. I need 5 minutes alone with his laptop. If I can copy the Project Alpha files, I can sell them to his competitor for $3 million. Then I can dump this loser and go back to Miami. David didn't look up from his coffee.
Sure.
Come by around noon. I raised an eyebrow. David caught my eye and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. I decided to tag along, bringing him lunch. At the office, the employees whispered. They knew me as the invisible wife, and they remembered Rebecca as the one that got away. Rebecca clung to David's arm as they walked through the executive floor. Wow, David, you've built such an amazing kingdom, she cooed. Tacky decor. And his secretary is too pretty. I'll have to fire her first. God. Hurry up and go to a meeting so I can access the terminal. David led her into his office. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. You can wait here. Okay, darling, she kissed his cheek. As soon as David and I stepped out, he pulled me into the security room next door.
He didn't speak.
He just pointed to the monitor. On the screen, we saw Rebecca wait exactly 10 seconds after the door closed. Her demeanor changed instantly. The sick, weak posture vanished. She moved with purpose to David's desk, pulling a USB drive from her bra. Password, try Rebecca 123. He's such a simp, he probably never changed it. She typed it in. Access denied?
What?
Try Emma Sucks?
No.
Try First Love. In the security room, David's face was stone. She thinks the password is her name, he muttered. What is it? I asked. It's the date we got married, David said, not looking at me. I felt a strange pang in my chest, but I ignored it. Back on the screen, Rebecca was getting frustrated. Come on. I owe the loan sharks by Friday. If I don't get this data, they're going to break my legs. Why is this idiot so secure suddenly? She started rifling through his physical files. She found a folder marked Project Alpha, Confidential. Jackpot. She pulled out her phone and started photographing the documents. David pressed a button on the console. Security, escort the woman in my office to the lobby. But do not let her leave the building. Call the police. I looked at him. Police? Corporate espionage, David said calmly. The documents in that folder are fake. I planted them this morning. But the intent to steal is real. And the USB drive she plugged in? It installs a tracker on her phone. We'll have everything. He turned to me, his eyes tired.
Emma, I'm sorry.
I don't want an apology, I said. I want half the assets and a signature on the divorce papers. We'll talk about that later, he said, dodging the subject again. Rebecca wasn't arrested that day. David let her go with a warning, claiming he wanted to handle it privately. I knew he was plotting something bigger. He wanted to destroy her completely, not just catch her. The annual Wilson Corp Gala was that Saturday. It was the biggest social event of the city. Rebecca was ecstatic. She believed she had successfully photographed the documents, not knowing they were fake, and sent them off. She thought she was rich. Now she wanted the social clout. She spent a fortune, David's money, on a gown. Tonight is the night. I'll make sure everyone knows I'm the real Mrs. Wilson. Emma will be the laughing stock. I'll spill wine on her dress, make a scene, maybe hint that she's infertile. We stood at the entrance of the ballroom. I wore a simple black dress. Rebecca shimmered in gold, clinging to David. My mother-in-law was there, too. She stood next to me, gripping my hand tight. She hadn't spoken to Rebecca since the soup incident. David, Rebecca whispered loudly as cameras flashed. I'm so happy to be by your side. David walked to the stage. He took the microphone. The room hushed. Welcome everyone, David began. Tonight is about truth and clarity. Rebecca smiled smugly from the front row. He's going to announce our engagement. Or that he's divorcing the frump. Finally. For the last 3 years, David said, I thought I lost the love of my life. I was blind. He looked down at Rebecca. Her smile widened. But, David continued, recently I've been given a gift. The gift of hearing the truth. The giant screen behind him flickered to life. It wasn't a video. It was an audio recording. It was a recording of Rebecca's inner thoughts. I realized then what David had done. He hadn't just been listening. He had realized that the mind-reading phenomenon was somehow physical, perhaps related to the unique frequency of the hearing aid prototype he had been testing, or maybe it was just a miracle. But he had found a way to isolate the audio from the security feeds in the house where the phenomenon was strongest. The speakers blasted Rebecca's voice. Seducing this inexperienced David is child's play. If you weren't worth hundreds of millions, disgusting old hag, smells like mothballs, peasant's will. The ballroom gasped. The audio was crystal clear. It was undeniably Rebecca's voice, but the tone was vile. Rebecca stood up, looking around frantically.
What?
That's not me. That's AI. He faked it. Then the screen changed. It showed the security footage of her in the office, photographing the documents. And this? David asked. Is this AI? Rebecca froze.
I'm ruined.
I'm dead. The loan sharks are going to kill me. I need to run. I need to blame Emma. It was Emma, Rebecca shrieked, pointing at me. She forced me. She blackmailed me. The audio boomed again, playing her live thoughts in real time through the speaker system David had rigged. Why aren't they buying it?
Stupid sheep.
Move, David, you useless ATM machine. I need to get to the exit before the police come. The synchronization between her mouth moving and the thoughts playing was off, exposing the lie instantly. The crowd erupted in murmurs of disgust. Police officers stepped out from the wings of the stage. Rebecca Jones, an officer said, you are under arrest for corporate espionage, fraud, and theft. As they handcuffed her, Rebecca screamed, thrashing wildly. Her inner voice was a cacophony of curses, slurs, and terror, broadcasting to the entire elite of the city until the doors finally closed behind her. The silence in the villa was deafening. Rebecca was gone. The police had found evidence of her gambling debts, her fake medical records, and her history of scamming wealthy men in Europe. She was facing years in prison. I sat at the kitchen table, the divorce papers in front of me. David walked in. He looked 10 years older. He poured himself a drink and sat opposite me. She's gone, he said. Good, I replied. I slid the papers across the table. Now, sign. David looked at the papers, then at me. Emma, you don't have to do this. The problem is solved. Mom loves you again. I know the truth now. You know the truth about her. I corrected. But you don't know the truth about us. What do you mean? I died, David, I said calmly. He frowned. What? In my heart. I lied, partially. I couldn't tell him about the rebirth. I died the moment you brought her into this house. The moment you hesitated. The moment you wished I was her. I was manipulated, David pleaded. I didn't know. It doesn't matter, I said. You didn't love me, David. You settled for me. And I settled for being your housekeeper. I'm done settling. I can learn, he said, reaching for my hand. I can make it up to you. I have hundreds of millions. We can go anywhere. We can have a real honeymoon. I pulled my hand back. I don't want your money, David. Well, actually, I want exactly half of it as per the law. But I don't want you. I stood up. You have the ability to hear thoughts, right? Listen to mine right now. I closed my eyes and projected my thoughts as loud as I could. I don't love you anymore. I pity you. You are a sad, lonely man who fell for a pretty face and ignored the woman who actually cared. Now, I just want to fly to Italy, buy a vineyard, and never hear the name Wilson again. David flinched as if I had slapped him. He stared at me, tears forming in his eyes. He finally heard me. He finally really heard me. Slowly, with a trembling hand, he picked up the pen. I'm sorry, he whispered. He signed. 3 years later, the air in Tuscany was indeed fresh, smelling of grapes and sun-baked earth. Much better than the fresh air Rebecca had lied about. I adjusted my straw hat as I walked down the rows of vines. My vineyard was small, but successful. I had used my settlement wisely. My phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Tech mogul David Wilson donates another $1 billion to cancer research. Still unmarried. The recluse CEO says he is atoning for a lifetime of blindness. I swiped the notification away. Emma, a voice called out. I turned to see Marco, the neighboring estate owner, jogging towards me with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. He had a warm smile and calloused hands, hands that worked the earth, not corporate schemes. I brought the new vintage, he said, breathless. I wanted you to be the first to taste it. I smiled, taking the glass. I didn't need mind-reading powers to know what Marco was thinking. His eyes said it all. He adored me. To new beginnings, I said. To clear skies, he replied. I took a sip. It was sweet, robust, and real. I had kept my promise to my past self. I hadn't wasted a second more on tears or David Wilson. I had taken the money, I had taken my life back, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was truly, peacefully happy.